the state's law for what licenses we distribute and the way our ordinance is written. We basically just mirror their law. The 1.5 times is their limit on what any city can charge on that. And so that's where that number comes from. And you're right, everybody in the surrounding area is doing the exact same thing. So we're right in line with what that is. As far as condensing the licenses, one of our requirements is we don't issue our license until the state has theirs. So if we were to allow somebody potentially, like what you were talking about, where you roll those up, so our license is going to allow you to sell on Sundays, but we won't have a state corresponding license to sell on Sundays if they do not sell on Sundays. So the licenses we offer are the ones the state offers. And so, I mean, it just opens up some cans of worms when we are allowing them to sell on days that the state does not allow them to sell on. Do you understand what I'm?
I do. My feedback on that is they would still have to comply with state law. It's just one of those of, it's fewer paperwork they're filling out on the city side, is my perspective.
Right, I just don't believe, I'm not sure, I defer to legal, if we have the ability to license them to sell on a day on which they are not licensed by the state.
Okay, so you're saying, sorry, so you'd say that they just had Monday through Saturday through the state, and ours is all encompassing, we're saying on ours, we would allow Sunday where they wouldn't be in compliance with
And we
state
would,
law.
right, and we would not have a corresponding Sunday sales license from the state, which we would be potentially, I mean, to me, that looks like a pretty clear issue, but, I would defer to city attorney on any specific legal matters.
Thank you, Mr. Gerke. Do we have any other additional questions from City Council? So, just out of curiosity, what's the purpose for the separation between Sunday and regular sales? I may be getting into the weeds, but is there a reasoning behind why we need a separation between normal sales on 6 days of the week and then another license on Sunday?
So again, that law does not come from us. It is in our ordinance because it's in the state. If I had to venture a guess, I would say if you looked at what that day traditionally is, you can kind of figure out where that probably comes from.
Sure. No, I appreciate that, yeah. Do we have any additional?
I'd say it's a blue law issue.
But-
Yeah, I would say blue law, but that also goes back to the percentage of alcohol that they could allow us to sell on Sundays. And that's changed. I don't know what the state law is now, but yeah, I'd say blue law, and then what the state law is percentage of alcohol. Because back in the day, you can only buy 3-2 beer on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And now you can buy 5%, I guess now. So I guess, I don't know, that's
Still in some
again
places.
legal.
Thank you, Mr. Harder.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Campbell.
on this list here, right or wrong, it looks like most of these would have businesses in other jurisdictions as well. So it seems like they're already used to doing this way. Does that make sense? So if they're already paying the 1.5% city. They're already doing it Monday through Saturday. They're already doing just a Sunday license. There is a few locally owned companies on this list, but most of these are businesses that are already doing this in other cities just like this. So I'm not sure, you said you had some feedback from local businesses about just the congestion of it, I guess, but looks to me like they're already used to doing this in other cities.
Yeah, I think it's more just about the additional fees, because that Sunday license is an additional, we have $750 on there, but it's $450 Monday through Saturday, $300 on Sunday. And so it's that, $300 to sell 52 days, other than the Super Bowl. In our ordinance, the Super Bowl is listed as a day you can sell, specifically, which I found interesting.
In our ordinance?
Yes, we specifically call out the Super Bowl.
Interesting. Do we have any additional questions from council? So I have a question. What's our liquor license based upon? I see there's several different rates. That's just the volume, as in, is there, like, how is that classified per volume? Is it X amount of dollars or X amount of milliliters or?
Our liquor license we have mirrored exactly the state. And then we have used a 1.5 times rate on those fees. So everything every decision that was made as far as this, including the Super Bowl decision, is a state decision.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the Super Bowl clarification.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Campbell,
maybe to help clarify, is there a is there a difference between selling it whole versus serving it? Is that what the fees are?
Yeah,
Is that
there-
the differences in the fees?
There are different fees for if it's packaged liquor versus if it's a service by the drink. Those are different licenses. And again, those are the state's licenses that they have. That is one of the traditional breakdowns, though, is whether you are selling a prepackaged liquor versus whether you are, opening liquor and distributing it as drinks.
Do you know how many separate licenses we have, if you include just beer, malt liquor, wine, any alcohol?
No, I mean, we could quickly look at that. But we also, we have catering licenses and picnic licenses, all sorts of different things. But we would, again, have as many as the state.
thank you, Councilmember O'Neill. Do we have any additional questions from City Council? Gary?
Always got a question. I would like to hear Megan's thoughts on this particular subject.
So, I was actually looking at this right now, and so I'm aware before they changed the most recent round of the regulations that they implemented, before that, it used to be that the cities actually had to essentially issue the liquor license before the state, because the state wouldn't give them the state license until they presented a local license. Well, that's not the case anymore. On the question of whether the city could issue a license before the state or without the state, Chris, to your point, I haven't had to research that. To my knowledge, we could. However, in practicality, I don't know that that would matter, because the city can't allow something that the state is also not allowing. Now, what ramifications would there be to the person under city law or ordinances? There wouldn't be any, but they would be in violation of the state law. So, I mean, the two kind of work in tandem, so they kind of go hand in hand now. There's not really any particular order anymore. But I would think that with the regulations that were implemented most recently, where it sort of flip-flopped that order, and now the state no longer requires presentation of a local license, my caution, my advice would be that we don't be in the habit of issuing the local license before the state license, just taking the conservative approach, and then waiting for the state license to come around before the issuance of the local. In general, I will add that the state's ability to deny alcohol licenses now, those restrictions have been dialed back. So it's essentially easier, if you will, now to get a license, just because the qualifications are relatively low. I mean, we're talking things like cannot have been convicted of a certain crime, very basic, fundamental qualifications, so.
Good to know.
Does that get your question, Mr. Wilson?
Yep.
Do we have any additional questions from City Council?
I have one more, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Campbell?
So will this create an issue if we rolled them all into one? If I had a restaurant that wasn't open on Sunday, but yet was still paying the same price as the ones that were open 7 days a week, just food for thought, would you get complaints from those people saying that I'm paying the same amount? I don't know. I don't drink, so yeah.
Good question, Mr. Campbell. We have any additional, and do we have, I don't know necessarily we have an answer for that.
I don't need an answer. I was just
No,
throwing it
yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
I definitely see your concern on that, just in the fact that, and I'm trying to think of a restaurant that serves alcohol that doesn't serve it on Sunday too, so I'm kind of spinning both directions here.
Yeah, if they were closed for whatever reason.
Sure, it's a great point, for sure. Do we have any additional questions, comments, statements from City Council on liquor licensing discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Cameron?
Just a question for moving it forward, or whether to move, what to do with it. What would be the desired direction to go? Would be to propose an ordinance change, or what would that reflection look like? And is there a pulse for doing that, which is the purpose of these conversations? Is this something you would like for staff to move forward on, so I can give direction, like, hey, would you like to see a draft ordinance? Just some sort of idea of like, hey, what would you like to do with this discussion? in general so that we can have the attorney work on it? Because that's kind of what we're doing, is just doing it out here versus getting direction from to the attorney, hey, draft me an ordinance, I want to put it out there. It'd be kind of nice to have some kind of just feel for, hey, I'd like to see more of this and see what that would look like. I would appreciate getting some feedback.
Yeah, if nobody agrees with it, we don't want to waste staff time, like, looking into it.
So looking towards council, on feedback from this, is this something that, I guess the purpose of when Mr. O'Neill was talking was condensing this licensure process?
I would still see us having a couple, like, for package sales versus buy the drink, but just condensing those down and then potentially lowering the cost so it's not $750. Part of the thought behind that is we're getting tax revenue off those drinks that are sold. If maybe somebody didn't want to spend the extra money to be open on Sunday, but it was already included for us, it might be worth the little bit extra to be open another day, which is an additional day of tax revenue for the city.
Sure.
It's just, it would be one lot, and granted, it would just be at the city level, but it's just kind of an option of, we want to be friendlier for businesses, and we want them to be able to open here and operate. And so I was counting, I think there's 16 different types of liquor licenses you can purchase. Now, that's including packaged and buy the drink, but there's also different types of buy the drink. And then you saw the microbrewer we have opening has their own different license that makes them cost more than anybody else, and
Sure.
some things like that too. So that's just the concept behind it.
No, thank you for that clarification. So condensing the licensure process, lowering that cost as much as possible, and then kind of navigating through the state's requirements of liquor licensing and how to mesh ours to improve that process.
Sure.
Is there anyone on city council that has a question about that clarification of what kind of our intent here is today?
Well,
Mr. Campbell?
I would like to say that I'm encouraged by you looking at this. If I had someone on the state or county looking into my business on how they could lower my fees, I would be much appreciative of that. So I do like it, trying to make it easier and simpler and cheaper. But yeah, I just want to clarify, I'm not against this. And yeah,
But absolutely in favor of improving the process.
if
Well,
it can
I
be
don't say
done,
absolutely,
yeah.
but that as much as work that can be done. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Do we have any other statements, questions from city council? Mr. Gerke?
So this is annual fee, I assume? Yeah, okay. That's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anyone on city council that would not be in favor of, that more would favor this, the system that we have now on that separation between the licensures versus moving forward with an improvement to the process on ordering, condensing that? Does anyone have any comments, concerns on the latter? So looking, Dan?
Just a comment, it sounds like statewide, this is kind of the cost of doing business. Everybody's adopted this. To me, I don't see what, I guess be saving for the businesses, yes, but it's a cost that they're accumulating anywhere else. So I don't think it's a deterrent one or the other coming to the city. Selling more alcohol, I don't know if they'll sell any more, any less. I don't have a feel for that. But like I said, I think it's, when you come into the business, this is the cost of doing business. So since we're in line with the rest of the state, I'd say it's, why do the work to change it?
Say more in favor of the way it is now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Harder. Anyone else on council have any, one way or another? Without taking a vote, I feel like the conversation is kind of leaning more towards at least exploring an option of improving this process. Is there anyone that would disagree with that? And I appreciate this, both sides, and then having that conversation just in the feel of what I'm feeling today. Mr. Wilson,
I would be in favor of leaving it the way it is.
leaving it the way it is? Okay,
Me too.
okay. So is there anyone else that would like to give a question, comment? So we're kind of half and half split on that. I wasn't quite expecting that, but
Let me
I love the conversation and I love hearing both sides of that story. So that's why we're here today, and I very much appreciate that. As far as moving forward on this, what would we relay to staff as far as doing on this? We're at a 50-50 split. I'm always up for, if I had to look at this in the aspect of the mayor's tie-breaking vote, we're not voting here today. I want to make that clear. But I really appreciate that process and looking towards the businesses and streamlining that process, even if the state has a certain way of doing things. I like to explore things that we can do things and, sticking with our mission, vision, values of improving those processes, that relationship and that trust, whether it be with our businesses or the constituents. And so I would be in favor of at least exploring the option of improving that process and reducing the cost, because reducing the cost is always, in the price of business, it's everything. And with COVID, with everything that our restaurant industry has been through in the past several years, I know that everyone I know in the restaurant industry would appreciate any help that we could give them, especially as a city and possibly even working on state. But, so my recommendations as mayor, looking at, we're about a 50-50 split here, but I would like to go ahead and explore at least the potential, the possibility of what we could potentially do, even if there's nothing, if we get to the state level and everything's mirrored and there's nothing we can do, then so be it. But, so that would be my recommendations. Would anyone, any comments, concerns?
I got one question.
Ms. Gary?
If you do this, what would be the cost to the city?
Cost of the city to explore.
Cost to the city, as in tax revenue.
Mr. Cameron?
Mr. Mayor, I don't ever want to use the word nominal, but I don't think it'd be a material impact, just considering the fact that you're talking about, because you're not really gonna, I don't think it's gonna be some big number that I even know that I hate to even admit this, but I promise you at the budget hearing, we don't go over what's the liquor licenses done, or what's this restaurant doing. To Councilmember Neal's point, we're always looking at this business is gonna generate this much sales tax. We look at the impact of what it would be if they were not doing business in town versus whether they do business in town. So I'm gonna comment when I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. I love the fact, Mr. Mayor, you stood up and just said, hey, listen, we're kind of split here. That's what I'm looking from this body to do. We will move forward with that piece, but it's not gonna cost a lot, Mr. Wilson, if it was to go away. The second point that I think about Republic that I love about the direction we've created in this community is we don't always look at what everybody else is necessarily doing. We're looking at what the path that Republic needs to be. And so blazing new paths is not always easy. And so doing something that everybody else is doing is kind of the nature of leadership. And so I love the fact looking at ideas. I think it's worth the reach to go out there and take a look. That way you can at least say, hey, here's the one more thing that we're doing a little bit more to demonstrate that we align with our mission, vision, and values, doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, but also being urgent, bold, and decisive. And so I love the fact, Mayor, that you did that. Colin, that's a great lesson right there, young man, of just being the chair and saying this is difficult. We don't know. We're just trying to find some direction. Staff, I'm sorry, but we're going to work on this. And so, but at the same time, I'll help provide clarity, and it may be a bigger, muddier mess than we think. But put it on the table, put some considerations, provide some, just how government works, amendments, changes. But no, it will not cost a lot of money to the city. Just a little bit of time to work on it. I would just say give us some time to work on it versus it'll be on the next agenda. I can't tell you that it'll be anytime in the next 30 days, but it'd be something that, hey, let's kick around and put a draft ordinance right out here, not on our first read at a city council meeting. So I would just say, put a draft out here and kick it around at a work session, and if you say, kill the deal, then don't work on it anymore. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron.
Great job on that call to flip the coin and just say, I'm gonna make a decision there.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron, and thank you for council for bringing that discussion. I love this discussion and having those both points of view so that we can see that whole picture, because it really helps on perspective for all of us, especially having 9 different people up here and having that discussion. Everyone participating is absolutely appreciated. That was the last thing on our agenda for this evening, other than reports from staff. Mr. Cameron.
We don't have any additional reports to have today that I'm aware of, so.
Excellent.
Megan, do you have any?
I do not.
Okay, perfect. Do we have any reports from city council? Seeing that there is, Mr. Neal.
Just one report to bring up. I didn't do it during the last meeting just because the timing of it, but attended the Lauber Law Firm kind of delegation. One thing they suggested that I heard from them and kind of resonated, something at least worth potentially discussing, is they brought up prayer as part of the city council meeting, that can expose us to having to allow other people to come in and do things. And a suggestion that they kind of had that I think could allow us to still do the same thing we're doing, but lessen our potential exposure, is to hold prayer prior to the meeting starting, because at that point it is not an official part of the meeting. So that's just something that came from Lauber. That was a major suggestion they had. They brought it up, specifically called out a lot of councils have prayer as part of the meeting. You are making that an official agenda item, and that can lead to issues and problems. So, and being as Republic has had a history with, I don't want to call it separation of church and state, but the flag issue from years ago, it just seems like another step of something we could be a little more cautious of. We could still do the same thing. We would still have the same basis and meaning behind it, but it would potentially lessen the impact to the city if somebody ever decided to challenge that. So just an idea from them, something I want to throw out there and bring back to the council.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Okay, so, okay, perfect. So, no, I appreciate that report from Mr. O'Neill, and if we need to look into that further, definitely. I know since we had that conversation earlier, I've done a little bit more research on that, so there may be some things I can share with you on top of that, and looking through that process. So, thank you for making us aware and bringing that to the council's discussion, or council's attention. Do we have any additional reports from city council? Seeing that there are none, I really appreciate everyone coming today for this conversation on the public safety discussion, on everything that we've had, especially recently. I know that was a lot of things that my phone was ringing, well, not for a while, but, you know, once my phone started to ring again, it started ringing. And so everyone wants answers, everyone wants them immediately. I totally get it, but, you know, complete respect for our first responders, the job that they're doing, and not interrupting that process and what you're doing, because it's very vitally important for our community. And so knowing that we always need to contact David is a helpful refresher. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for coming this afternoon and filling us in on the Tri-State Water Coalition. So we appreciate that and all of those different pieces that are a part of that vitally essential thing that is water. And I really did appreciate your story on the Haiti as well. That's being overseas and in the military, it's amazing the amount of work that goes into a community that does not have water at the tap. It's almost like they spend their life living just to get water. So having that here, having that essential for the citizens of the Republic, I really appreciate all the work that goes into that. Other than that, that's all I had for today. So I appreciate the pizza. Appreciate everyone that came here today. Thank you to City Council for the great discussion today. Thank you for taking your time to come down here and discuss these very important topics. And with that, meeting adjourned.